Hey guys, and welcome back to another Conan Exiles video. Today we are building the Slayer's Guild, a large guild hall for expert monster hunters. This is indeed a speed build, as this build took about 2 hours just to build, along with the 3 or 4 hours decoration time on top of that. So without further ado, let's get started. As with all of my speed builds, I'll be explaining my inspirations and ideas behind this build, along with any difficulties or issues I ran into whilst constructing it, and then we'll walk through the finished guild at the end. Also, all of the mods I've used in this build will be in the pinned comment below. This build has quite a large footprint with its decently sized baseplate, however constructing it is actually quite simple. You can see the blueprint of the guild itself on screen now, so if you would like to construct this build for yourself, feel free to either pause the video to look at the blueprint or just take a screenshot. The other day I had a couple of comments that helped me to build the initial concept behind this build as a large guild building for expert fighters and hunters. Guilds are something I've always struggled with in the past, but the structure and themes of this build developed quite quickly and I just kinda went with it. I took a decent bit of thematic inspiration from Runescape, a game I have sunk far too much time into. Runescape, though it doesn't actually have a Slayer guild in game, has a very in-depth Slayer skill with a huge variety of monsters and Slayer masters, and with the vast variety of creatures in Conan, along with the flexible lore and decoration options from the mods I'm running, I wanted to capture the essence of Runescape Slayer skill within this build. Instead of the fragmented design of RuneScape, where Slayer masters and relevant resources for the skill are found all around the map, I wanted to pull all of the important features that a monster slayer would need into this build, whilst also presenting it in an attractive way that captures the atmosphere of a safe haven away from the dangers of the Exiled Lands. For the construction of the build, I went with a really simple palette of stone and wood, choosing to mainly use the Bosonian material set from the Northern Timber mod. I've used this mod quite a lot in the past, though I've only really used Bosonian a couple of times. It's a great material set to use for builds that benefit from quite a dark and intense atmosphere, which Bosonian is perfect for. The stone options, though much more limited than the wooden options, are just nice and easy. They're just plain, mid-tone stone and they work quite nicely. The wooden option for the walls are fairly dark red in terms of colour, which contrasts really nicely against the more clean mid-tone stone. I also chose a 2-tone wood setup for the baseplate, using stable wood foundations with an inlay of frontier wood, for a bit of a contrasty look, but for something that overall wasn't too punchy. I also raised the foundations of the build up progressively, as I want the build to sort of ascend in height, with multiple smaller roofs to make sure that the build doesn't A, turn into a massive box, or B, get ruined by one enormous roof. When it came to building the walls and floors, I decided upon 2 floors for the guild. The ground floor will be the main hall area, where most of the important facilities are, including the supply store, the quartermaster, the metalworks and the hideworks. The first floor will be a bit more sparse, as it will be a series of platforms connected together by thin walkways, so that the build has a lot more visible verticality. The first floor will contain a lounge area, a relic hunter's store, a small kitchen and bar, and a mess hall. With all of these infrastructure pieces, along with a fountain of restoration and a small map on which you can plan trips, I'm hoping to make this guild a place that would be useful to slayers of all disciplines. I'll also of course be populating the build with these slayers, and you might recognise a couple of them from previous videos. The actual construction of this build was fairly straightforward. I ran into a couple of stability issues here and there on the first floor, though it wasn't really too bad in the end. The main issue arose when I reached the roof, which proved to be nothing short of a nightmare. The front roof wasn't too bad and the side roofs were easy enough, but the main issue was the stability of the large rear roof. Given the size and the open nature of the baseplate inside the guild, there were no walls in the centre to pass stability upwards, so I had to rely on pillars. Even when I completed the roof, this resulted in a really ugly interior that was just marred by pillars. The interior of the guild ended up looking more like it was made from scaffolding as opposed to being a warm, open guild hall, so eventually I did have to make some changes in the furnishing phase. I removed the obstructive pillars and replaced them with infinite stability steel beams from one of my mods, which always passes 100 stability horizontally as long as they're attached to a tile with 100 stability. I've used these beams in builds before, don't get me wrong, but I always do my best to avoid them, as their function is basically impossible to replicate without the mod that allows it, and I do like to keep my builds as open as possible to allow players on consoles to construct it themselves. However, that being taken into account, the guild would have looked awful with all those pillars in the way, so I had to rely on the infinite stability beams for this build, which finally allowed me to finish off the roof. So really, I think that's about all I have to say for the construction phase. As with all of my speed builds, I'll let the rest of the construction phase play out, and then I'll walk you through the furnished build and explain some of the design and utility choices. If you'd like to skip to the finished walkthrough, feel free to move to the next chapter, which is marked on the play bar below. As usual, all the links to my Twitch, Patreon, Twitter, Discord and NordVPN discounts are in the description below. With that being said, enjoy the rest of the build, and I'll see you in the furnishing phase. Finally, when the shelter build was done, it was then time to of course furnish. Approaching the build, I've added a towering statue of a dragon atop the guild, and I've lit the exterior with lamps. Entering the guild, the atmosphere is warm and heavy, and the mix of dark red wood and stone creates a sort of strong, violent feeling, which perfectly complements the theme. To the left is the Quartermaster Kane. This Slayer Master offers tasks to Slayers and will buy a few limited resources from them, including certain hides, trinkets, or bodies of monsters. Crossing the hall, we reach Sylvex Supplies, a well-stocked storefront that offers potions, water and food, along with some basic gathering tools and items that will help in slaying certain monsters, including caustic salts, padded gloves, rings of vigour and fury necklaces. Heading deeper into the guild, the centrepiece is a fountain of restoration, enchanted to refresh slayers that drink its waters. The fountain is watched over by a statue of Neve, a Slayer Master who established the guild, and the head of a giant scourge dragon. There is also extra seating dotted around this area of the guild. Stepping up onto the raised platform, there are two workshops here. On the right side is the Hide Works, where the skins of various monsters can be turned into leather for armour or weapons, or their entire corpses can be taxidermied. Across the hall is the Metalworks, where an expert blacksmith crafts swords, shields, and various armours for Slayers to purchase. He's also able to refine and repair weapons and armour, along with providing detailing services for the more decorative garments. Upstairs we have the Relic Hunter's store manned by Herman, an experienced collector who buys and occasionally sells trinkets, jewellery and other odds and ends, a lot of which have been pulled from the hands or sometimes indeed stomachs of various different Slayer monsters. Across the hall is a small lounge for rest and relaxation. Simple and comfortable, this is a great place to just sit down and chill out for a while. Towards the back of the first floor is the kitchen and bar, where the plentiful wildlife in the nearby area can be served to hungry Slayers. Across the way is the mess hall, where those who don't feel like propping up the bar can take a seat and fill their stomachs. And there we have it, a Slayer guild in the Exiled Lands in the Southern Highlands. Thanks for watching, I really enjoyed this build. I play a lot of Conan and a lot of Runescape, and being able to take influence from the latter to create this build was pretty enjoyable. I hope you guys enjoyed this build as much as I enjoyed creating it. As always, you'll find all the links to my Twitch, Discord, Twitter, Patreon and NordVPN discounts in the description below, along with credit for the music used in this video. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. I put out at least 2 videos a week, so there's always plenty of content to come. If you have any suggestions for future builds, I would love to hear them in the comments below. As always, a massive thanks to our patrons Sammy, Sir Dialot, Randar, Connor, Blue Ivy, Velma, Torn, Eagle Rose and Maril224. Again, thank you very much for watching, take care, and I'll see you soon.